This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. I have often referred to the Baku City Circuit as the Talladega of F1, and I don't think we were disappointed in that at all, because if you follow NASCAR, Talladega can be a track where you can sometimes see a one-off winner or a strange result because it's kind of a mixing bowl. And that's pretty much what we got. So welcome on in. We're going to break it all down for you. This is season 7, episode 33 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Azerbaijan Baku GP, however you want to call it. It's our review show of that race. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just saw each other last night or early this morning, but long time no see, I guess. But anyway, how's it been going since? Have you gotten your nap in? I know I did.
I've gotten a couple naps in throughout the day. Yeah, it was a little rough getting up on, 5 hours of sleep to watch the race, but it was entertaining enough that I stayed awake the whole time and then immediately crashed for several hours after it was over. And I've been up and down the whole day, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it was definitely worth waking up for. I mean, there were the drama and the change and everything was all there for you. But we're going to get into all that in just a little bit. So if you have found our show, welcome along. As always, we are glad you are here. You can find our show and our content on Blue Sky, on X, on Instagram, Discord, sometimes Reddit, a little bit every now and again, but always here on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle, one handle for all of those places. If you enjoy what you're seeing and you like and enjoy what we say, if you're on YouTube, you can leave us either a like or a subscribe. That would be awesome. If you're on a favorite podcasting app and you're enjoying the dulcet tones of our respective voices here as we pontificate about Formula One, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that would also be appreciated. What does that do? That helps just our stuff come up a little bit better in F1 related search results if you are into content like this. Everyone asks you to do that. You can email the show, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your thoughts to us. Thank you so much to our continued supporters who continue to support the show, including, you guys know these names by now: Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who is just as crazy about Formula One as I am, if not more so. The only guy, I think, he was waking my ass up at 3:30 on Saturday morning for practice, just to spite me. And I love that about it. Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that what we call the hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, you can see our anchor page. It does ask for a small little monetary donation, $1, $5. What does that all do? It all goes into trying to keep our technology relevant, keep this lovely recording platform up and going, so we can continue to bring good F1 content to you. All right. Well, let's just dive right in, shall we? We will start with our headlines of the day. Cody, what you got here?
My headline of the day is that this was the worst weekend for McLaren this season by a country mile. Misfortune for both Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in qualifying, and then even more during the race, especially for Oscar Piastri. Not a strong performance for Lando either. I don't think you can really blame this weekend on the car or the team at large. This one really seemed to fall squarely on the driver's lap.
I will get into that, and I will share my thoughts on McLaren in a little bit. But my headline of the day overall with this Grand Prix is, like I said before, this is the F1 equivalent of Talladega. It can do that. It can be the mixing bowl. It can mix up the grid. We can have people finishing in places that you normally wouldn't see. And that's kind of what we saw. We saw a couple people who needed some good results actually get them, and some people who were used to getting good results didn't get them this weekend. So we will cover all of that in just a little bit. And we shall start. Is it finally over? I don't know. It was the equivalent of 2 Italian GPs with our qualifying session on Saturday. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 red flags meant a 2 hour and 20 minute or something F1 TV content block. It's all there for you if you want to go rewatch the whole thing. But we'll take you through it. We're going to summarize all of that into just a few minutes. And so that qualifying saw, all right, this driver was actually disqualified from qualifying a few hours after in the post-qualifying scrutineering. That was Esteban Ocon, so all of his times were deleted. P19 is Alex Albon, P18 was Pierre Gasly, P17 Nico Hulkenberg, and P16 was Franco Colapinto. Advancing through to Q2, but going no farther. 15 was Ali Behrman, 14 was Lance Stroll, 13 Gabby Bortoletto, P12 was Lewis Hamilton. That was a surprise, especially given the qualifying or the early practice form. P11 was Fernando Alonso. The top 10 from 10 to 1 was reliability kicked in and drivers hitting the wall. Charles Leclerc did it first. He did not set a time in Q3. Oscar Piastri, championship leader, then followed suit. He hit the wall, also did not post a time. P8 was Isaac Hadjar. P7, only good enough for P7, was Lando Norris. P6, Yuki Tsunoda. Hello, where has this been? It's reminiscent of Sergio Perez in Baku. Welcome back, Yuki Tsunoda. P5 was George Russell. P4, another guy who needed a good result and got one, Kimi Antonelli. P3, Liam Lawson. Talk about the up and down nature of his year, man. P3 on pure pace. P2, we thought he was on for pole with the changing weather and the crashing and the fixing of the barriers and everything else. Carlos Sainz and the Williams, but you can't give this guy an opportunity and not expect him to take it. Max Verstappen does what he does best. Put the car on the pole in the trim that he's got, a 141.117. What a session. Wow. All right. Cody, lots of stuff. I'm sure we could talk about this as long as we talked about the race, I bet. But what you got here?
Yeah, this was definitely a wild qualifying session, and I knew it was going to be because I did not watch this one live. I was not ready to get up that early on Saturday. But when I did get around to watching it and I booted it up on F1 TV, right away I saw that the runtime for the qualifying session on F1 TV was 2 hours and 13 minutes. I was like, what the hell happened? Did it rain? No, everyone just kept crashing into the wall more often than not.
Well, it did rain a little bit, and I think that was
it did
part
at the very end, just a tiny bit. But that I don't think that really played too big a part in the time woes. That was all the 6 red flags, and I don't even remember who was the causes of each and every one of them. But I believe Alex Albon was the cause of one of them.
Ollie Behrman.
Leclerc, Charles
Piastri. There were a couple of them. Hulkenberg broke a wing, but managed to get it back. Mm-hmm. So there was lots of carnage. And what was causing the carnage was, we talked about this in our preview. The wind had kicked up, and look, you're racing in a downtown area, and I have this memory of, it was one of my first times really driving at night downtown in the city of Chicago. And it was one of those days where it was in the middle of the winter, but it got unseasonably warm. It was ridiculously warm. And while I was at a dance or something, and I remember, because I got out and the wind had shifted around almost 90 degrees. It was blowing straight out of the north, and it was blowing so hard it almost would almost knock me down. And I'll never forget, like, you couldn't get a read on where the wind was, because it wouldn't just blow in one direction when it hits tall buildings. It would swirl. And I could only imagine what that was doing to really aero-sensitive Formula One cars around this circuit. I'm sure it was playing havoc.
Yeah, playing havoc and causing issues with the grip. So many drivers slapped that one Tech Pro barrier with their right side of the car. In fact, that was, I think that's pretty much what did Leclerc in, although Leclerc pretty much went head on into it. Same thing with Piastri. The little slap like that, though, is really, I think, what did Norris in, because after Piastri retired and his time was only good enough for 9th place, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, like, this is going to be Lando's comeback moment. He's gonna get great qualifying. He's really gonna get a leg up on Piastri in the race, and that didn't really happen that much, because Lando was maybe pushing just a little too hard. He did end up clipping the wall a little bit in that one section of the track. When he came across the line, I was surprised that he was not fast enough to pip Carlos Sainz, and that was the moment where I was like, ooh, I don't think that was a good lap, because I mean, that was a decent lap from Sainz, but that was really only up that far because he managed to get a time in before the most recent red flag, and then you had a little bit of the rain, so people were struggling with grip. And yeah, he just kept tumbling down the order as everyone was completing their laps, and then you ended up with Max well out in front, like almost half a second out in front of Carlos Sainz at the end. But I was very excited by the jumbled up order that we got from all of this, because McLaren's with the dominant car. It's kind of fun when they're not locking out the front row. And you had a really interesting mix of Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli, Yuki Tsunoda, all people who are not regulars up at the front. I was very excited for the race after this.
Yeah, it definitely did the Talladega shaking up of the order for sure. Mm-hmm. Can't really blame, like, when Lando had the thing that the freaky yellow flag thing, I almost kind of put that last year on both him and the team, because they had kind of set it up. They were trying to play a game with the tires where they were trying to go on a set of used softs and try to sneak through and, all that other stuff. They weren't trying that. Everybody was trying to do everything at the same time when it got to Q3. And it just didn't matter because something kept happening. And for the longest time, we only had 3 people with lap times. So Q3 is only 12 minutes. Usually it's enough for 2 really good laps. It all really came down to 1 because of Leclerc's hitting of the wall. I think was about with 9 minutes left. And then when Piastri hit the wall, it was with about 3.5 minutes left. So it was going to come down to 1 lap. It was kind of a lottery of where the wind gusts were and where the wind gusts weren't, and with everybody trying to extract every bit of everything. I mean, there were 2 main mistakes that I saw with Lando's lap. One was in the castle section. He got onto some of the painted white line, and that caused him to have to do one of these with the wheel. And that definitely, I think that actually more than the hitting of the wall, like by the time they caught up to Lando's lap, that's when they showed him brushing the wall. But his lap was already screwed before that. And it was at that point that I was like, oh, well, that's pretty much all she wrote. But if I put my fan hat on for a minute, frustrating as hell, because, here it was. You finally had the guy who doesn't blink all year in Oscar Piastri, and he's earned that right and that reputation by not blinking. And here was a legitimate blink, and here's the garage opening the door of opportunity. Is the only thing I could say. It was just, it was 0.6 down on Sainz, for crying out loud. I mean, it was just an awful lap as it turned out. So only good enough for P7. And you just knew that it was going to be a frustrating Sunday following that. More so for his teammate, because we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, just opportunity lost for Lando Norris. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of opportunities lost because you had Lewis Hamilton not even make it into Q3. You had Charles Leclerc down at the bottom of Q3 because of his accident. Lots of drivers here that we expected to be up at the front that made mistakes, and that really played into the hands of some drivers, because as we saw during the race, as we're going to get into, it was not easy to pass. So qualifying really made a big difference for this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get it in and get it clean, like that was the whole thing I kept thinking of, and like every time. And I'm not, I mean, look, the track is what the track is, and how they organize the pit lane is pretty universal. Because McLaren were P1 in the constructors, they were actually at the back. And I almost selfishly would be like, if I could have asked, I would have wanted to be at the front, because it meant that every queue, they were always behind somebody, and somebody always had a problem in front of them. And then, of course, Oscar does it to himself. So, can't blame anybody there. But it was it was very frustrating. Like, they'd be on good laps. The pace was in the car. These results do not show, in my view, what the pace was in the car, because I thought they could do it. It just wasn't clean enough. And you give a guy like Max Verstappen an opportunity, and you flung the door open. He's going to walk through it, and there it was.
Yeah, this one I definitely, and we're going to get into it in the race as well, because we kind of saw more of the same. But compared to Italy, I feel like for Italy, the Red Bull car was more favored to the track than the McLaren. Which is why Max won by like 20 seconds. Here, I really don't think that Max being on pole was due to the car performance. I think it was just crazy track conditions causing lots of mistakes, and Max just doing what Max does best, which is going out there and putting it in when it counts. And you want to talk about someone who doesn't blink. I would say, unless he sees red, it's right. Max Verstappen.
I mean, he's blinked, but he hasn't blinked in a while. And with the new regime and the new Red Bull pecking order as it is, he's in a pretty good spot. And that can be sometimes a very dangerous thing to the rest of the grid for all of their 19 drivers. But the standout performances, you have to hand out some good stuff here. You got to give something to Carlos Sainz and the Williams. I mean, for going out and getting the banker in, turns out to be one of the best decisions he could have done. It wasn't a particular, you look at the lap time. I mean, you look at that versus what we thought we were going to see. These lap times are slow. So, versus what we were expecting. So, especially with a C6 tire. But Carlos Sainz taking advantage of the conditions in the drier. And I did hear some stuff like, I know it didn't rain a lot, but where it did, it definitely made the white lines and all that a lot more slippery. Kimi Antonelli said so very much after qualifying about it. So, but Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson, two guys who have been kind of on an emotional roller coaster this year. Carlos Sainz coming in heavily favored to try to drag that team up. It's been largely a disappointment. Here's his moment to everybody remember that he's still a pretty darn good racing driver. And there it was. And Liam Lawson, who's been, the 2 races with Red Bull and you're out of there, kid. Treatment is, since he's gone down to Racing Bulls, he's done a lot of what you would want him to do. He's reconstructed in a lot of ways an F1 career. Now, whether or not that's going to be back in the full Red Bull team, I don't know, but he's viable again, where you almost thought that this was like his last run, or they could have moved, everybody could have moved on from him very, very quickly, but he's still in the conversations for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we will turn over our attention to the Sunday race, and we will start as we typically always do with the back markers, because it's going to matter who's in the back markers this time, because not a name we are used to seeing back here. We were talking in the pre-race, or the pre-show. I'm calling this the worst 35 seconds of Oscar Piastri's professional career. F1, F2, F3, all of that combined. This, I think, was the worst of it. He gets the dreaded DNF out on lap 1 after jumping the start, throwing the car into anti-stall, trying to make some sort of a hero move in a part of the track that no one had driven the entire weekend, and there was no grip, and he just slid it and hit the wall. Bad day for him. And then he was doing the deck chair. Fernando Alonso, Brazil 2016, I think. Eat your heart out, because Piastri had it all to do. He had a pretty good view, actually. I thought that his view was actually a little bit better than Fernando's, but he was relegated to watching the rest of the race from his deck chair in the castle section there. P19 was Franco Colapinto. P18, Pierre Gasly. Just a also painful weekend for the Alpine team. P17 was Lance Stroll. P16, Nico Hulkenberg. P15, Fernando Alonso. We would have expected Aston Martin to struggle here, and they kind of sort of did. P14 was Esteban Ocon, getting up a bit. He did start from the pit lane, so it's a better finish, but no points. And P13 was Alex Albon in the Williams. Obviously, the headliner here is championship leader goes into the wall on the first lap. Cody, what's your thought here?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed all the big points on that, where it just went from bad to worse. It was bad because of the accident in qualifying. The race starts off as bad as it possibly can because he jumps the start, which we didn't see right away. We didn't really see that until it got around to the replays. But all of a sudden, he's down in 20th position, and that's because he jumps the start. And then when the race actually started, he put the car in anti-stall. So everyone goes by him. He's in last place. And all I can think is that he must have been trying to desperately claw back what he could while everyone was still bunched together, because, he made a move around the outside that was never going to be on, went straight into the corner and smushed up the car pretty well. And didn't really have much to say on it. He was okay, but then he just went and watched the race from the sidelines, which we got some pretty good shots of. Again, was thinking that, okay, Oscar Piastri's out of the race. This is a great time for Lando Norris to close up that points gap. And as we'll get into in a little bit, that didn't really happen. But it looked like it could be on. A lot of the other back markers back here had other issues throughout the race. I think Esteban Ocon and Nico Hulkenberg were involved in a collision with each other on the very first lap. Didn't really have great pace overall anyway. I think Alex Albon ended up getting a 10-second penalty. I'm struggle to remember. It was a sleepy day.
Oh, him and Ocon. Well, after the Piastri wreck, him and I think it was Colapinto. It was him and Colapinto came together later on, and Franco spun around and actually hit the wall. So,
yep, accident there that followed up. I think Franco Colapinto, didn't he have like a spin later in the race too, coming out of the pits? Yep.
Yeah.
So
he had a spin.
Bad day for Franco, unfortunately.
Yeah, like it was just as painful for the Alpines as anybody else. They did not have a particularly good day either. So all these teams that were kind of, looking for opportunities for points or opportunities to get back into championships or whatever it is, it all seemed to be falling away, because we'll get into our midfield here. So P12, finishing outside of the points, was Ollie Behrman in the Haas. P11, just missing out on points, was Gabby Bortoleto. P10, Isaac Hadjar does get into the points for Racing Bulls. P9 was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. You almost had to wonder about their strategy. It was very interesting. They tried to do a teammate swap and swap back and didn't execute it very well, because finishing P8 was Lewis Hamilton after Leclerc let him by. And he was letting him by because he wanted to give Hamilton a run at P7 Lando Norris, who could not get, in the end, past P6 Yuki Tsunoda, who could also not get past P5 Liam Lawson, who probably gets Defender of the Day. Piastri-esque from last year, doing, I think it was 25 or 30 laps with Tsunoda basically in DRS the whole time, and managed to hold him off. And P4, another guy, needed a good result and got one here, Kimi Antonelli. I'll just start from Lando's perspective. Just a very frustrating day. DRS train, not able to unlock the pace. If there was pace in the car, he kept telling the guys that there were. They opted, and I kind of disagreed with this, they opted to try to go uber long. And I thought, had they put him on the hard tire and went uber long, that would have been the way to go. But they didn't. They opted to start on the medium tire, which, okay, that was supposed to help you with the start, and Lando loses 2 positions at start. And it's supposed to help with the restart after lap 1, and Leclerc gets by him on the restart after the lap 1.
Yeah, Lando looked like he fell asleep at the wheel during that restart.
I can't. I was annoyed. It's a good thing it was still dark out, because I'm sure my face was fairly red at that minute.
Even the F1 TV commentators are going, wakey, wakey, Lando.
Yeah, I was like, come on. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, is there something in the water in Baku this weekend? I don't know. Maybe there was, but yeah, I mean, after that, he got better. There weren't any after that any other mistakes. He did, on strategy, because of the tire offset, when they did eventually pit him, get past Leclerc, which was important, but he didn't have anything for Tsunoda. And look, it was a really big ask once Tsunoda gets in DRS and can't do anything, but the guys behind got in DRS and couldn't do anything. DRS train, classic, all here for you. So very, very difficult to pass, even with the long straight that was there and the DRS zones that were available. Yeah, he tried to make a move, I think, on the second to last lap, and that's as close as he got, I think, within 0.2 of Tsunoda, but yeah, just unable to move from where he was.
You can tell that a lot of drivers were struggling with that too, because most of the incident related action was on that first lap.
Yeah.
That was the only time we had a safety car, surprisingly enough. No red flags, no other safety cars during the race. So not really anything to really shake up the order too much there. And a lot of drivers finished very close to where they qualified because of that issue with the DRS train. You get close, you don't get quite close enough. You don't get far enough to make a move without locking up your brakes, and no one was being that crazy after what happened in qualifying. So yeah, the Ferraris, Lando Norris, they get stuck in this train. What that did really help out, though, was the drivers in cars that didn't perform as well. Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda have finished. Lawson lost a couple positions, but he's in the Racing Bulls. Like, I think finishing fifth on
he's happy.
pace for the day without some kind of crazy thing helping you out was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's happy. Kimi Antonelli's happy, and
Tsunoda's happy.
Oh my God! Well, welcome back. This is best finish in a Red Bull, best finish all season, best finish in like 2 years, I think, for Yuki Tsunoda. So, harkens back to the Sergio Perez-esque. All of a sudden, even though Perez was having a terrible year, there he was, and Tsunoda got what Perez deserved last year. Perez deserved to get a third or a fourth, and they just him and Sainz took each other out. But what are you going to do about that? But anyway, okay, so yeah, just big DRS trains in the midfield, but that led to the podium. And for a guy who, again, has gone through the emotional roller coaster, I would put Sainz, Antonelli, Lawson, and Tsunoda. All of those guys have had the emotional roller coaster. Here's the high for Carlos Sainz. The promise comes and gets executed. Williams, who did not, I think they've scored more points this year than their last 2 years combined or something like that. I read the stat. It's kind of crazy. But Carlos Sainz gets Williams on the podium. I want to say, now check me on this. I may be wrong. Is this the first podium since Stroll did it in Baku in 2017? Or did they get another one?
If you want to be technical.
Oh, George Russell
did get a podium in the race that
didn't happen.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, where we actually saw a green flag. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to say first legit podium.
First real podium, yeah.
2017 for Williams. George Russell, who was sick all weekend, but probably feels a lot better now and is probably hopefully eating some chicken soup, which will do wonders for his soul, comes home in P2 and not challenged all day. You put Max Verstappen in clean air and you put everybody else who's literally falling each other over themselves. Max Verstappen walking away with this one by more than 14 seconds. Easy. One of, I think, his easier victories that I can remember in his career. Cody, you can check me on that, but what's your thought?
It's definitely an easy one for him. He nailed the start, and it was all easy from there. Since so he got a good start. He held first place, and then he got a good restart from the safety car, and then it was all easy from there. It was just looking after the hard tires, which ended up appearing to be pretty easy because we did see here that despite the fact that Pirelli brought the softest tires in their range, they still were perhaps a little too durable for this race because pretty much everyone did a one-stop for their main strategy. Max Verstappen stayed on the hard tires for the majority of the race.
He was the last driver to pit.
Yep.
He was going to go long. He went very long, and he didn't even have to.
He pit, and he came out right back in the lead. In fact, he ends up getting another grand slam for getting pole fastest lap and leading every lap of this race. So a good one for him. But yeah, it was much easier than all the other victories Verstappen's had this year, and that's saying a lot because he pretty much waltzed off with Monza as well. But yes, Carlos Sainz, another one who benefits from the fact that it was hard to pass here, but his pace was really good. Not able to hold on to second place, but he does still end up getting that awesome podium for Williams. I did not expect Sainz, with how this season's been going, I did not expect Sainz to be the one to get that first podium for Williams. Thought for sure it'd be Albon, but very happy for him nonetheless. George Russell is really the only driver who made pretty good improvements on his position throughout this race. He goes from fifth to second. A lot of that was done at the start, and then just pretty much good pace through the pit stop sequences, gets him past Carlos Sainz, and pretty much just had it from there. I don't think he was ever going to really catch up to Max at that point, but he gained everything that he could. And the fact that he did all this with a respiratory infection, I mean, guy's got it, like, for sure. He's a diehard racer if he's going out there with a nasty cough and still coming out of this in second place.
Can he get a contract now, please?
Yeah, please, seriously. It's getting really weird at this point.
Like, I mean, this is getting very awkward. What are they waiting for? Like, are you waiting to come to, like, the U.S. and do it? Or, because that's where you've got shareholders? I have no idea. I don't know anymore. He's done everything that he's been asked of them. I don't
He
know.
wants more money.
Well, maybe.
And he's showing that he deserves it.
Certainly, he's gone out and he earned it this weekend in more ways than one, because he sounded awful on Friday on the radio. It's one of those where they played one and I went, oh, dude, give him a lozenge. Put a lozenge in the helmet or something that he can, put it in the drink bottle, or put some brandy in the drink bottle or something, because it sounds like he's in pain. But yeah, just a good result for him. And, Carlos Sainz, watching Carlos Sainz and the Williams guys celebrate was a very cool moment. James Vowles, here's just going to be a hot take on the first part. Get ready to see that a bit more next year. I got a funny feeling that those guys are if they're doing this with a car that they didn't develop, what can they do with a car that they're actually going to try on next year all year? So, it kind of sucks that this race, which sometimes can be a banger and sometimes can be a procession, kind of felt more like it, especially after the crazy qualifying. And yeah, you had a crazy mixed up grid, but you didn't have the opportunity to overtake. And I would say maybe you should re-lengthen the DRS zones, but that's a moot point because we're not going to have them next year. So I don't know. But yeah, the fact that we had tires that wouldn't dag and a track that was really, really hard to overtake, I'd say even much more so than Monza, just doesn't lead to a fun Sunday. But, depending on who you're rooting for, it was better than others, for sure. All right. Well, that will kind of wrap up our initial pass at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix for 2025. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We will update what this did to those driver standings. Things getting a little closer at the top. I've seen some potential questions getting asked, and our opinion is slow your roll, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. We will then talk about the team standings. Something didn't happen that we both thought was going to happen. We'll talk about that. We'll open it up to your thoughts on what you saw this weekend in the fan email segment. We'll then hand out some awards. I may get a little spicy when we get to a certain award, so you really won't want to miss that. It may be classic Andy rant time. I don't know. We'll see how red my face gets. But anyway, come on back. You won't want to miss it.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back on in. This is season 7. This is our episode number 33 of the Outlap F1 podcast. This is our 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we just wrapped up recapping one of the craziest qualifyings I can remember in a very long time. And unfortunately, not so crazy of a race, but it did lead to some unexpected results. And if that's what you like, then this weekend was the one for you. But where did this all fall out in the standings? Both the drivers and the constructors. Cody, if you take the drivers, I will handle the teams, and I'll pay off my T's and tell you something that didn't happen this weekend. So, Cody, take it away.
Oscar Piastri still sits atop the driver standings in his McLaren, despite getting no points after his lap 1 incident. He is on 324 points. Second place is still Lando Norris and the other McLaren, who made some small gains on Oscar Piastri from this race. He's now at 299 points. One race win out of first, provided Oscar Piastri had another retirement. Max Verstappen makes the biggest gains. I am still very much of the opinion that it is too little too late, but it's fun to dream. Max Verstappen in third place and with the Red Bull. He's at 255 points now. George Russell also making some pretty good points headway from this race. He's in fourth place with Mercedes at 212 points. And then it's a little bit of a gap back to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in 5th and 6th place, respectively, both for Ferrari. They're sitting at 165 and 121 points. Seventh place is Kimi Antonelli in the second Mercedes, who had his first good outing in what feels like too long. So glad to see Kimi Antonelli have a good show this week. He gets some good points, and he's in seventh place at 78 points, which puts him now back ahead of Alexander Albon, who is in eighth place for Williams at 70 points. Isaac Hadjar continuing to impress. He does squeeze 1 point out of this weekend. He's sitting in ninth place for Racing Bulls at 39 points. And then just 2 points behind him is Nico Hulkenberg, wrapping up the top 10 for Kick Sauber at 37 points.
Interesting enough, Carlos Sainz jumps up like 6 positions up to like 12th. Yuki Tsunoda is no longer the worst full-time driver. He's up 3 positions from 18th to 17th. So yeah, there was lots of changing of the order, not necessarily in the top 10. But one of the things we both thought was going to happen did not. McLaren did not capture their second Constructors' Championship, even though they are up to 623 points. It was not enough. Mercedes now take over the P2 position, however, due to both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli's good result here. The P2 battle is could actually get quite spicy coming down here. Mercedes is on 290 points. Third place is now Ferrari. They're up to 286 points. Fourth place is now Red Bull, because look at this. You have 2 cars score points, and all of a sudden, you're back into the conversation for P2 and the Constructors. Look at that. 272 points for them. P5 is Williams. They have eclipsed triple digits for the first time, seemingly forever. I'd have to go back and look. I want to say it's even like 2012 or something like that. But Williams, 101 points for them on a car that they have not developed at all. Like I'm saying, watch those guys next year. P6, Racing Bulls, doing good things too. Liam Lawson and Isaac Hadjar both in the points. A track where all Red Bull cars were in the top 10 this weekend. Good for them. They're up to 72 points. 7 is Aston Martin. 10 points askew of Racing Bulls. They are on 62 points. P8 is Kick Sauber, unable to make any inroads this weekend. They remain on 55 points. P9 is Haas. They also remain on 44 points. And P10 is Alpine, still the best last place team ever, but they remain on 20 points. All right. So you have heard our take on the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend. What was your thoughts on the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend? It's a fan email segment. We've got a couple of our regulars here. Cody, it is your time to shine. Rachel Fleming was right on time, as always. Formula has signed as checked in as well. So, Cody, what do we got?
All right, our first email comes from Rachel Fleming. Thank you, Rachel. And she says, well, that was a standard Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Max wins. Could this lead to an unexpected title charge? What an absolute disaster for McLaren. I can't think how much worse it could have gone for Oscar on Sunday. It really couldn't have gone any worse.
Worst 35 seconds in his career.
Yep. Jumps the start, falls to the back, and then crashes out on the first lap. And then Norris doesn't make much of an impact either. That blasted pit stop again. Good race for George Russell, a clever strategy, and a good undercut on Sainz led to a good podium. Speaking of Sainz, he didn't fall down the order and kept his nerve to get a podium. This could confirm Williams' 5th in the Constructors. Yes, this really made good inroads for them there. Very happy for them. I have a new name for Alpine. We're going to call them Alpine. 18th and 19th, 10th in the Constructors is beckoning. I think at this point that is a foregone conclusion. They haven't scored
unless they pull a Brazil from last year. Unless they get a rain and double podium again. Possible. Yeah, who knows?
Problem with that, though, is that everyone else is so strong in the midfield this year that even if they did get a double podium, I'm not even sure that would get them up.
It would get them up to P9. They're 24 points adrift of Haas right now.
Alonso Watch jumped the start when he reacted to Piastri jumping the start, but he didn't argue against his penalty, probably because it was clear as day, and he wasn't probably going to get points anyway. And then Sauber Watch, Hulk really has lost his form since his podium at the British Grand Prix, and Gabriel didn't make much progress either. Yeah, lots of good points in here. I'm going to kind of go from the top here. Does this mean we are seeing an unexpected title charge from Max? Honestly, things are going much better for him than I would have expected at this stage in the season, and he has made up pretty good a number of points on the McLarens over the last 2 Grand Prix. However, I would not say that I'm really seeing this turn into a title charge. He still needs a lot of luck to go his way. You know, we've been at 2 tracks here. one that really, really favored the Red Bull car, and one that had a lot of driving difficulties. Azerbaijan is a very unforgiving track. There's no there's the little straight runoffs in the turns, but other than that, there's no forgiveness. You hit the wall and you're toast. There's not really any way to avoid that. So a really rough track, and we did see some kind of unexpected poor performances from the McLaren drivers, but I still feel that the McLaren is the dominant car. We're going to be going to Singapore next, which is going to favor their car much more heavily. There's only 7 races left. So even if Max was to win everything else for the rest of the season, all the McLarens really need to do is wrap up the podium. And I think one of them is going to win the Drivers' Championship still. So yeah, I'm not ready to believe in that yet. It's been fun to watch, but he definitely needs some more crazy shit like a double McLaren retirement or something else like that really going his way. It's not impossible, and I'm here for it if it happens, but I'm not really ready to believe it just yet.
My table will not survive if that ends up happening. I'm just going to tell you right now, because I'm pretty sure I woke up half my building when Oscar binned it in qualifying. I was more upset about the qualifying than I was even the race. As it turned out, like he probably, let's say he doesn't jump the start, he probably doesn't do all that great in the race anyway, just because you could not pass. So maybe he comes home in P.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably about as good as he was probably going to be able to do on relative pace. But anyway, we'll never know. But it was, I think, McLaren's worst weekend. Just from Friday to Sunday, the level of just things that didn't go smoothly. Oscar had the hydraulic leak that they fixed, and the Saturday sessions were not smooth at all. And then obviously Oscar puts it in the wall. They had to change the chassis. So he's going out on a car that he has no mileage in. Now, it was a chassis that he won back in China, but I don't know what the status of that one is because he binned the other car pretty good too. So, but they've got spares. They'll be fine. But yeah, just not a good weekend. It just seemed like anything that they were going to try to do didn't work. The only thing I could pick at strategy-wise was I was of the opinion that I would have tried to undercut Leclerc or undercut Tsunoda a lot earlier, and it seemed like they went through the overcut, so I didn't love that idea. Now, it still comes down to the pit stop, and if again, slow pit stop. I know that on the broadcast, on the international broadcast, Karun Chandek was like, oh, that would have made the difference. I don't know. We'll never know. I mean, it was so marginal that if Tsunoda's even a nose in front and Lando can't get past, it doesn't matter. And Lord only knows what happens if Lando comes out, maybe he spins the tires, and then we're talking about a double DNF, but who knows?
Yeah, the pit stop definitely didn't help him.
But
the weekend was already going pretty poorly anyway.
Yeah, like it was like, let's say they did a 1.9 second one, maybe then he's maybe up to 5th, which is not great still. But anyway, good race for George Russell. Yeah, totally. And, he was the one car, it was the Mercedes car that seemed to probably have the best race trim. Mm-hmm. I almost wish that they had been further up because it would have been interesting to see, could they have done anything with Max or made Max work harder? That we'll never know. But again, for a guy like, and we talked about this, for a guy who's doing the emotional roller coaster, all these guys are, Antonelli, Russell, Sainz, Lawson, Tsunoda, it's good to see some light shine on all these guys once in a while. So that was actually a good thing for the champion, for F1 overall. Yeah, Fernando Alonso did not have a great race. We kind of were expecting Aston Martin to struggle across both of these tracks, and I was not really surprised by that. And again, I think also the Sauber thing. I think they are much more temperature sensitive than they would care to admit, and I think when it gets cold, I don't think they like it as much. So in both places, it seemed like they've not gone well the last couple of races. But I would expect that to kind of almost flip around. And we're going to see, I think, Singapore, where now Aston Martin will probably be one of the better midfield teams, and Racing Bulls will be there, and look for Sauber to come back a bit. So it's going to be fascinating kind of how this all works as we progress through the rest of the championship here.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Thank you again, Rachel, for your email. Our second one comes in from the Formula. Thank you, Mr. Formula. And he says, what a drama-filled weekend. Love to see it. To borrow a line from 2023, Andy, this weekend really threw a wrench in Oscar's monkey plans. I still think Oscar wins the championship. It's a tall order for Max, and Lando keeps bottling his opportunities to make massive dents in Oscar's lead. Side note, what happened to Deanna? I haven't heard from her in ages. Yes. So we already pretty much touched on the fact that it would be crazy if Max somehow made a legit championship push at this point. Many things would still have to go sideways for McLaren at this point. Now, Lando still has a chance, especially if, Oscar starts feeling the pressure of the championship push, which he might be feeling at this point. But Lando definitely needs to do a better job of capitalizing on these opportunities, because this was the perfect opportunity for him to really close up that gap after he had that unfortunate retirement a couple races ago. And he blew it in qualifying is really where it was at. We saw how hard it was to pass. If he had a stronger qualifying position, he's almost certainly would have had a better finishing position, could have really eaten up that lead that Oscar has, but he didn't quite get there this time, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, somebody even asked in one of the post races, should McLaren be panicking? And the answer to that is an unequivocal no. They are not going to be panicking. Should they be concerned, and do they have to mark Max? Yes, they were going to have to mark Max throughout the rest of the season anyway for race wins and that type of thing. But they got to go back to just doing what their own stuff again. Stop worrying about all this outside other stuff, all this outside extra media, all that other stuff. I don't care if you just minimize the media obligations for the next little bit, but you got to get back to just doing what you do. And I think that'll be fine. But this was a legitimate blink for one Oscar Piastri this weekend. And it was an opportunity for Lando Norris that just went away. And I can't explain why. When we get to awards, I'll probably elaborate a little bit farther, but a 98% quali lap probably puts him in a lot better shape at the end of this weekend. And instead, he went for the 101% qualifying lap, and it bit him. And sometimes that's what I love about him, and sometimes that's what I hate about him, because this is the roller coaster. This is the roller coaster that you ride with a guy like that. I've really started to come to think of him as a modern version of like James Hunt, where he's got the talent, it's all there, and how many times does he not put it all together? And it's just frustrating. It's just very frustrating. But not panic, but be concerned. But you earned a couple of free markers by doing what you did. So now you've cashed in your markers, but no more. You can't afford to do it anymore. If this happens again, then all those other questions become a lot more legitimate and a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And to your question about Deanna, Deanna moved over to the UK. She used to always be on the East Coast. She went way east and is living and doing quite well, as far as I'm concerned, over in the UK. We do chat occasionally over WhatsApp, so I know she's doing okay. But the ability to try to record with a 6-hour gap. I mean, we're recording it. It's 10:30 on a Sunday night. It would be 2:30 something, 3:30 in the morning for a time.
Yeah.
It's a logistical nightmare. We told, like, she told us too, it probably wasn't going to happen anymore. And I said, look, absolutely no problem. Go have your adventure. And that's what she's doing. I know she was at the race in Zandvoort last year where Lando won.
Oh, jealous.
Well, yeah, she was able to go. And like all of a sudden I just, I'm getting pictures from, like, she had a good view and all that stuff too. So, but yeah, she's fine. But I would not expect to hear her very much on the show. So, we wish her all the best. And, if she has a thought or wants to send something in, she's more than free to do so. But yeah, no, she's doing fine. All right. So we will move into our awards. We shall start with the rubbish. I think we have consensus here. Cody, I'll let you go first. What do we have here?
My rubbish award is going to go to both McLaren drivers, I guess, with a gold trophy going to Oscar Piastri in this case.
Ooh.
The shortcomings of this weekend, I think, really are on the drivers. The car had good pace. We did see that through the first couple qualifying sessions. We saw that through practice, that the car had good pace. Sure, you had a slightly slow pit stop for Lando during the race, but we also discussed that I don't really think that made a huge difference for where things were going. I really think that all of the bad things that happened this weekend are falling squarely on the drivers for pretty much cracking under the pressure maybe a little bit. But we've seen Oscar Piastri be rock solid throughout this whole season. He's even been able to pull it back somewhat when he's had bad things happen, like when he got stuck in the grass in Australia at the very beginning of the year. He fought back and made some awesome moves and managed to make his way back up into the the points paying positions, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, this weekend, he binged it in qualifying all on his own. He jumped the start all on his own and put the car into anti-stall and then crashed again all on his own. So I'm sure he's aware of that, and I'm sure he's going to take that with him after this and try to get refocused and try to buckle back down for the next race, because so long as he can stay ice cold, Oscar, I think he's going to wrap up this championship with maybe a race to spare. We'll just kind of have to see how things go, but he's got to get back to that. And like we said with Lando Norris, he had the opportunity to close the points gap and make this back into a nice, tight, exciting championship battle, and he closed up the gap. I think what was the statistic I was seeing is that Oscar lost less points to Lando than if they had a 1-2 finish. If Lando had won and Oscar had finished second,
it would have been 7 versus 6.
That would have lost more points
Yes.
than with him retiring and
Yes.
Lando finishing 7th. So yeah, Lando definitely not able to capitalize on the opportunity he had, which is pretty disappointing to see.
Yeah, I'm going to borrow from a guy that I've started watching because he likes to play old Nintendo games, and I'm an older statesman and my gaming is limited to 8 or maybe 16-bit. But he's got a sound effect on there that when like his chat is trying to distract him, it's a recording he used to make, and he was like beating himself up about it. And it's really simple. Stop making excuses and execute. My God, was this a frustrating weekend as a McLaren fan? What the actual hell? Was there something in the water? I don't get it. Like, you have not seen Oscar Piastri act like that. I don't know where that came from. Like, that's just got to be a one-off. But if that is somewhere where that is festering, boy, you got 2 weeks. You got to get that stuff right and get it stuff right now, because yeah, you earned your markers. You've cashed them in. And on the Lando side, I love the fact that he always tries to go for it, but you could see what happened when the other car isn't in the garage in Q3. All you had to do was get on the second freaking row and you're there. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, he had that sector 1 that he had on that lap was actually the best sector 1 of anybody. It was purple. Just bring it home. Get it clean. The whole thing, I just kept screaming, clean lap, and they just didn't do it. Both of them this weekend, just into the bin. God, frustrating as hell. All right, that had been building up for a while, so I'm better now. Anyway, we'll move on to analysis paralysis. I'm going to give this one to Pirelli. I will try to calm down and try to analyze yet again. But this is getting old with the tire thing. I mean, they obviously brought the softest in their library. And, it almost feels like you should, I don't know how you fix it without spending more money. And that's the other problem, because what you really need to have is you need to have full-time track specific tires versus road course specific tires versus street circuit specific tires type of thing, probably to get the best out of it. And unless we want to actually start spending money and do tire development, it's like, this is why we don't have a good wet tire, full wet tire that works, because we don't want to spend the money. We don't want to spend money because we want to have all the compounds be universals. Pirelli is doing what the teams and FOM have told them to do, but I don't think they're doing a very good job of it, because the idea is to have high deg tires, and now there's no deg. And I don't know if this is just the teams have gotten and they've almost scienced out the deg in the tires. That's also entirely a possibility here. We are the last year of these regulations, and maybe next year it's a whole different ballgame. But it just from a entertainment perspective, after the crazy ass qualifying, you would have loved to have a crazy ass race, and you just didn't get it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm also giving my analysis paralysis to Pirelli. We picked on Pirelli a few times, and they're in a race like this, they're kind of an easy target when there's not a lot of good candidates for analysis paralysis. There were not really a lot of good candidates because there really wasn't a whole lot of strategy, because everyone just pretty much did a one stop. And it is very frustrating that, yes, Pirelli is supposed to be developing tires that deg over the course of a race and deg at different rates so that there's opportunities for different strategies. But when you are bringing the softest compound of tires that you had after you made a softer compound for this season, because what we had last year was not soft enough, and you still got teams doing a one stop from this C5 to C6 or the other way around, and they're C5 to C4. A lot of these drivers could have done probably the entire race on the C4 had they
I think
not had
Max,
the
if
requirement.
you didn't have a
compound.
mandatory pit stop, Max Verstappen doesn't stop.
Yep. It's not good. So it makes me wonder if we're ever going to see like the C1 ever again, because
they made a C0, and that thing again. Here's money that like here's my point. You made a C0 that was supposed to be the uber hard for like Silverstone, and that you didn't bring it there. And then where would you bring it? Maybe Bahrain. I mean, the other thing is a lot of these places have in relative terms pretty new surfaces. So you're not seeing the abrasiveness that leads to a lot of high deg in a lot of places. Like Bahrain is an exception because that thing has been there and they've left that surface alone and the elements have done all the stuff to it. But here, it's a street track, but it's still pretty baby smooth. I mean, I didn't see a whole lot of bumps or anything like that. Now, granted, if there is, they can't run. So maybe that's a good thing. We didn't have uber interrupted sessions other than the curb thing in FP1, which, by the way, that was just funny. That poor Marshall. Somebody give that guy a medal because he tried so hard to yank that thing up and it just wouldn't go. And then he's looking around like, is somebody going to come help me? I can't be responsible for this whole section. So that was kind of a more funny thing. But yeah, I mean, I just wish we could see a little bit more more strategy at play on race day as opposed to just on.
It kind of amazes me too that they don't want to invest money into tire development because, it's kind of a really important part of the cars. It's how they do the track.
They do invest money in it, but I don't think they want to bring extra. Their whole thing is they want to try to save on shipping. And if they don't have to ship a tire because it's an extra compound, they don't want to do it. And that makes sense from a business perspective, but you're also here to try to get a good result or picture of what it is on Sunday. And again, you got to figure out what you want. And this is like when all the teams get together, they all have their own individual wants and needs. And this is why I wish, you could have a conglomerate of these are the rules and do what you will, but it never works.
But what I want as a fan is the best on-track entertainment.
Of course.
So
do I.
Better damn tire.
I want to wake up at 6 a.m. and see the crazy Baku from, what was it, 2017, when it was all insanity. And when I watched that, I was in Austin and I was very hungover. It smoked me up because I was down there for a bachelor party. But anyway, we'll move on. That's a story for another time. You can ask me about it later. Dark horse of the day. Cody, I'll let you go first. What you got?
I'm going to give this one to Liam Lawson just because we really haven't seen a really big standout performance from Liam Lawson all year. And so for him to qualify on the second row, even with the fact that it was a lot of luck that he just happened to get in the lap before we got a red flag and had the rain come down. I mean, sometimes luck goes your way. That's just how it goes in sport. It went his way today, but he also had to make it work during race day, and he did. He held off cars behind him for a long time, all of which had form a nice DRS train behind him. And like you said, he did the same move that Oscar Piastri did last year for the win, which was holding up against that pressure, not making any mistakes, despite the fact that you've got the cars trying to make the move on you lap after lap after lap after lap. And he held up. He had a great race. I think it's one he can be really proud of, and had pretty much the best finish of his career.
Yeah. I'm giving this one, I'm calling it the law firm of Lawson and Sonoda. I think that just sounds good because it's both of these guys. They really have had just a crazy year when you think about it from a psychological standpoint. And for both of them, they're fighting with each other in one sense, but they're also trying to work together because they're trying to figure their respective stuff out. And for guys that needed a good result, this was good to see. Could it be for harbinger of things to come? That time will tell. I think I'm more, if I was going to bank on one of them right now, I would bank more on Liam Lawson than Yuki Tsunoda because we've seen Liam Lawson go good in places like Singapore in that Racing Bull before. But we're going to see. We shall see. So the next rounds will be pivotal for them. But it's good to see. I don't know if this does enough to save Yuki Tsunoda's career yet. But Liam Lawson's, I think, going a long way because I think he's been a little bit more consistent. He's on the way to doing it for him. So good job there. All right. We will then turn to driver of the day. This one was pretty easy for me. Another guy who'd had the emotional ringer when he got, just kicked out of his Ferrari seat and his race-winning seat, and everything was looking good for him, and he didn't want to go nowhere. Suddenly he's on the outside looking in, and He's trying to figure out where he's going to go, and he eventually signs on Williams. Let's just say up until now, this Williams season for him has been a struggle. So Carlos Sainz, podium finisher once again. Nice to see you, sir. Welcome back to the podium, and for sure, my driver of the day. Cody, what you got?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be Carlos Sainz for me. He's had a wild career in Formula One, and had Lewis Hamilton not gone over to Ferrari and said, "Hey, I think you're in my seat," I'm pretty sure Carlos Sainz would still be there this year. And we know that he's got a lot of skill, a lot of talent, proven race winner in Ferrari, had some really awesome races with them, and just out of the seat due to, pretty much the statistical greatest of all time saying that he wanted to be there. So not really too much he can do about that, but yeah, he's had, easy to say, a pretty rough time starting off in Williams, not performing up to the same level as Alex Albon. But, we got to remember Alex Albon's been in that seat for several seasons now, and Sainz is new there, but I think we all expected a little bit more from him, and finally got something good out of this race. He gets good qualifying, turns it into a podium, like you said, first legit podium for Williams in many seasons, and he and the team were both just ecstatic over this finish. So very, very happy for him. I hope this gives him the confidence boost he needs to have a good rest of the season in Williams. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to see where they move up to in the pecking order for next year.
Yeah. I mean, you think back to last year, and I remember when they released the video of when all the parts come back after a wreck. And they're all in there's cardboard boxes, and they have to open them up, and they're being uber careful not to damage them anymore. And it was like a 15-minute video. It was fascinating stuff. And you're watching their engineers evaluate what parts they think they can still salvage, and to go from that to now here, legitimate podium, on pace, on merit, all weekend long, just goes to show you can turn it around in Formula One. I know, like, you look at Alpine and you say, well, Rachel Fleming called them Alpine, and I get it. You can turn this thing around. It can happen, and it can happen pretty quick. And just as quickly, you can go from the penthouse to the outhouse. We've seen that happen. There's comers and goers in the sport all the time. And to me, it looks like Williams are going to be a comer next year. I just got me a feeling. That's a team you're going to have to mark. All right. So we will move into our predictions. And yeah, I'm wearing my McLaren hat, and they had a weekend to forget. And let's just say I had a weekend to forget too. I scored no points, and we were all dumber for listening to my predictions this weekend. So I apologize for that. Cody, you had a much better weekend. You got 4 points. You got the pole sitter. You got the fastest quali time, P1 on the podium. You also got the fastest overall lap time. Our bonus picks were a disaster. None of us got any of those, and none of us got the prop bet because McLaren did not close the show like we thought they were going to this weekend.
You want to talk about Dark Horse Awards. Dark Horse Awards should go to McLaren not clinching the constructors this weekend, because we were during the pre-show, we were talking about that it seemed like a no-brainer that they were going to clinch this weekend.
Even with the bad qualifying, all you had to do was keep Ferrari behind you, and you were probably going to be fine. And again, it goes back to what I was ranting about. Like, if 6th and 7th are the best you're going to get the 6th and the 7th. Maddening. But anyway, all right. On to the next one. But yeah, I had a weekend to forget too. So anyway, but I still lead. So again, let's very much McLaren-esque. Bad weekend, but still okay. I'm up 9-6 overall. All right. So that concludes the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend. As personally as a fan, I'm glad it's over and we can turn the page and go on to somewhere else. And that will happen in approximately 2 weeks' time with our Singapore Grand Prix. The F1 night race will be on display. So we will be back with a preview, more than likely Wednesday, Thursday of the next race week. We're going to take next week off. We will enjoy some other motor racing event. I think the Ryder Cup is next weekend. So, we do both play golf. That is really fun golf. If you ever wanted to see golf meet football, like crowd-wise, the Ryder Cup is it. So good luck, Team USA. No offense to all the Europeans out there, but I certainly hope Bethpage Black suits our USA golfers next weekend. So I will probably be wrapped up in that, along with some other NFL stuff as well. Anyway, we'll be back next, not this upcoming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that with the Singapore Grand Prix preview. We'll catch you up on all of the news developments. Stay tuned to our social media. If anything else, use your breaks. If we get a George Russell signing, I promise I will tweet about it. But anyway, for Cody, it's been Andy. Thanks for sticking with us as long as you have. Take care of yourselves out there. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at outlapf1 podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.